There's Just Something About Kansas City is brought to you in part by the generosity of our friends at the Cockrell Family Foundation, the Bergman family, and the Sherman Family Foundation. Thank you.
Folks, welcome once again to another episode of There's Just Something About Kansas City. Don't forget to like, listen, and subscribe. And, of course, you can always watch us on YouTube. I've got great honor today. Young guy I've known for a long period of time, Len Dawson Jr. is sitting across from me. We're going to talk about his wonderful dad, Lenny the Cool, a little bit. And we're going to tell some stories and have some fun and just bring back the great memories of that great man, a guy we all love so very, very much. And Len, thanks for joining us, and thanks for agreeing to do this. You said it's the first time I've ever been on a podcast. Is that right?
That's true. That's true. I appreciate it, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Oh, you absolutely. Len was one of my favorite people of all time. One of the guys that really just embraced me when I got here. Didn't have to. He was Len Dawson. After all, that was back in 1981. He was actually my rival over at Channel 9, and I'll tell you a quick story about that as we go along. But Len was a great guy, and let's talk about you first. What have you been doing? How you doing? I know you had some back surgery recently, so how are things with Len Dawson Jr.?
You know, things are good. I'm no longer in the food business, fortunately. I do a little stuff with some mergers and acquisitions. I do some stuff with some insurance for groups that can't afford it.
Sure.
And just try to pretty much help people. I mean, that's my goal, is to help people here in Kansas City.
Sounds like your dad. Yeah,
hey, he did a lot. He did a lot here.
He did a lot of stuff here, a lot of charity stuff too. And your sister Lisa, how's she?
Lisa's great. She's finally retired.
She still live here?
She moved back. She was in Rolla for about 11 years.
Okay.
Working for a bank called Town and Country. She's a banker. She's been in the banking business. That's been pretty much her whole life.
Yeah.
So she's finally she's spending a lot of time, traveling now and just enjoying life.
Yeah, right. Now I know you want to get back on a golf course one of these days, right?
Oh, I definitely do.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to. I'm going to.
Right. That back surgery sort of held you back a little bit, didn't it?
Oh, it definitely did. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Sure.
Okay. Like I said, I think the first time I met your dad was 1981. We were up at William Jewell College. It was preseason. I'd been here since April, but I'd never run into him. I knew I'd watched him on the air, and I knew he was the guy over at the other station. I was wondering how in God's name you could be able to compete against that guy. I'll tell you a story about my mother, too, and what she said about it. But the deal is I'm up at William Jewell, and we're all sitting on the sideline. You know how it was always the drudgery of the two-a-days, and if you were a reporter, all the guys are out there just, sweating and dying up at William Jewell in 100-degree heat. And we're sitting on the sidelines just waiting to do interviews, and everybody's just dying. And so we'd talk to each other about anything. And Len actually walked up to me. I can still see him to this day. He walked up to me and he said, who are you, sir? Do I know your dad? Who are you, sir? And why don't I know your name? And I went, well, my name's Frank Bowen. He said, oh, Frank, that's right. You're over at Channel 4, aren't you? And I said, yeah, Len, I am. And really nice to make your acquaintance. And he said, where might you be from?
That's exactly how he talked.
I said, Leonard, well, originally I'm from Pittsburgh. He goes, Pittsburgh. He goes, oh my gosh, Pittsburgh. I said, I know you have some real connections from Pittsburgh. Of course, you're drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And from that point on, every time I saw him, and he found out, he said, what is Frank from Franklin or Francis? You know how he really got into the details of your life. And I said, I'm Francis. From that point on, every time I saw him, he went, Francis. And I went, Leonard. And it just went on from there. But he was really a great man. And I know I'm stepping all over you here for a second, but I think either it was that season or next season, the Chiefs are going to play the Steelers in Pittsburgh. So I'm going to go home, and I'm going to see my mom and dad for the first time in years. I'd been away and chasing my dream all the way through the state of Washington, Northern California, Green Bay, Wisconsin. I finally get here. So we end up going to Pittsburgh. And I see my mother and dad at the Green Tree Marriott in Pittsburgh. That's where the Chiefs stayed in those days. And my mom and dad are in the lobby. And we're standing around, and I come in, hey, Mom and Dad, good to see you. First thing my mother says is, where's Len Dawson? And I went, Mom, I haven't seen you for forever. First person you want to see is Len Dawson. And she said, yes, son. And frankly, I'm surprised you're still working in Kansas City when you have to compete against Len Dawson. I said, Mom, come on.
Was she watching Channel 9
My gosh, heck yeah. Gosh, it was unbelievable. That is just my little capsule with your father and what kind of a person he is. And, of course, he was your dad, so I can just imagine the thoughts that you have about your dad.
Well, you bring up William Jewell. I mean, I spent every summer up there. You know, we didn't go on family vacations. I went to camp.
Yeah, sure.
But you know what? I wouldn't trade it for the world. I used to spend 2 weeks at Vince Gibson's football camp in K-State, Manhattan. And then I'd go directly from there and spend 2 weeks at William Jewell. And my roommate was Stu Stram. Oh my God. Hank's son. And that guy was such an athlete. And we competed and just had the best time. When I first started going to William Jewell, I was a yard dog, which was people that worked for Bobby Yarbrough, the equipment manager.
Yeah.
So we're washing jock straps and this and that. But once I came in there with Stu, that was it. I had the key to the pop machine. We did anything we wanted. So it was a big change.
Yeah, right. And just that experience with all those players and all those
family.
all those great players and family. And Hank Stram will tell a story about Lenny's 50-year relationship with Hank Stram because of Purdue and the whole thing. It's just it's an amazing deal. And for your own right, as far as an athlete, you played football, correct?
I played football. It was my mother wanted my dad to retire after Super Bowl I.
Oh my gosh!
So I wasn't allowed to play tackle football until I got to high school. And needless to say, I was pretty far behind. I went to Rockhurst, and they were, I think, ranked 6th in the nation.
Yeah.
And, I went from that. Of course, they put me a quarterback.
Naturally. Where else would you play? Yeah. You're Len Dawson Jr. Go play quarterback.
And I had, like, Brad Buddy and some other huge people in front of me. I couldn't see over them.
Yeah.
So I switched and went to, defensive back and wide receiver, and I ran back kicks and stuff. But football wasn't my sport. I played baseball all growing up.
Yeah,
and, baseball was a sport back in the 60s. Football didn't take over until probably the early 70s.
Oh, until the merger.
Yeah.
Right. When they merged the AFL and the NFL to the AFC, NFC, and then went to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl I, of course, the Chiefs were in. Just that was the incredible part of it also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you played baseball and your dad was a baseball player, I think, as well.
That was his favorite sport.
He was all-state high school football and basketball, and then he also played baseball at Alliance High School in Alliance, Ohio. And he was a terrific athlete as well. He was a really well-rounded athlete. Did he ever say, I know football is probably a sport because I know where he's from. I was from Western Pennsylvania. He's from Eastern Ohio. And those two areas of the country for high school football back in those days were way bigger than Texas or Georgia or Florida or California. They had high school all-star games. They had the all-star game between Pennsylvania and Ohio. It was just it was unbelievable back then how big it was.
Well, he's from Stark County, and they used to give every boy that was born a football. Believe it or not. So I mean,
sure.
That's the kind of desire they had for the game.
Yeah. He was a seventh son. He was, I think, the 9th of 11 kids, right?
Yep.
And this being a seventh son, you are destined for greatness, right?
Obviously.
Yeah. So did he ever talk about that?
He used to bring it up all the time when they'd interview him. He didn't really talk that much about it. I mean, he was born during the Depression.
Yeah.
In 1935. So, I don't think he had a lot of fond memories of growing up. They didn't have anything. Matter of fact, my grandfather never owned a house. His oldest brother, Ronald, the war hero, bought the family the first house.
Yeah.
And he was raised by his brothers and sisters. So I mean, it's just a different way of life back then.
Yeah, right. And he was how many of his siblings are still alive?
There's only 2 at this point, and those are the 2 younger ones. His 2 sisters, Betty and Patricia.
Uh-huh.
So there's not many of them left.
Yeah, right.
And in fact, we're going back for a Dawson reunion in August here. So
there have to be grandkids, and cousins, and nieces and nephews. You're gonna have to have those T-shirts.
We do.
Dawson family reunion.
We do have it.
So you don't lose anybody.
We have name tags. There was 6. I have 6 first cousins born the same year I was born.
Oh, wow.
That just goes to show you how many relatives I have. I didn't know any of them.
Yeah,
Living here
right.
in Kansas City.
Right.
I got to know them a little later, but
Yeah, sure.
big family.
Yeah, what's your first memory of your dad?
Of my dad?
Yeah. What's your first memory? Can you bring it back up?
Hell, I don't know. I don't have one.
Yeah.
He wasn't around a lot.
Yeah, well, we know that, yeah. And I know you were born in Pittsburgh, which
Yes.
is pretty funny as well, because your dad was out of Purdue. Okay, he was just terrific. He's in the Purdue Hall of Fame as well. But
He's in over 10 Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I know. He's broadcasting Hall of
Unbelievable.
Fames. He's in all kinds. He's like Lamar Hunt, who was the owner of the Chiefs, who's in so many Hall of Fames as well. Yeah, your dad's just in tons of them. But he's in Purdue's Hall of Fame. He's in Chiefs Hall of Fame. He's in Pro Football Hall of Fame, obviously, as well. But you were born in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And the funny part about it, when your dad was coming out of high school at Alliance High School, he was all state in football and basketball, highly recruited. He boiled it down to 2 schools, Ohio State and Purdue. Okay, now you have a kid in Alliance, Ohio, who's being recruited by the Ohio State University, and he decides to go to Purdue.
Well, Woody Hayes didn't throw the ball.
Yeah, I know. He's going to let Lenny run it, and that was going to be a problem.
He wouldn't be playing now.
Right. And the exact thing for him was he went to a school where he knew they were going to throw the football, and who was the offensive coordinator at Purdue at that time?
Hank Stram.
Yeah.
Hank actually recruited my dad and brought him up there. And, he got put in his freshman year in the second half of the Missouri game. Ended up throwing 4 touchdown passes to beat him.
Right.
And that was it. He started from then on. And, he was All-American, 3 years.
Yeah, right. 3 straight years, three years started for
Yeah,
Purdue.
had the Big Ten passing records.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Everything. And you know what? When people look at quarterbacks now, you see these guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and even Patrick Mahomes. I'm talking about size of the people who play the position. In those days, guys that size were offensive tackles.
Yes.
Okay. They never smelled being a
Linebackers,
quarterback,
maybe.
Okay. And linebackers and defensive tackles. And your dad was a quarterback and a throwing quarterback. And Hank Stram recognized that right away out of Alliance High School. I know your dad ran the ball as well, but he was really a great passer at Alliance High School
pinpoint,
as well, too.
pinpoint
Yeah,
passer.
really great, yeah. So Hank recognized that, and your dad recognized, I'm not going to go play for Woody Hayes. Okay, I'd rather go play for this guy who was just an assistant coach at that time.
Yep.
Yeah. So what were his thoughts when the draft comes up? And
He wanted to play for Cleveland.
Yeah.
We're Ohio people.
Where else would you play? Cincinnati wasn't even around at that point. So yeah, so he wanted to play for the Cleveland Browns, and he's drafted by Cleveland. Okay.
Well, what happened was, back then, I think they both tied had the same record.
Yes, right.
And my dad was 5th overall.
Yes.
Pick, so they flipped a coin.
Yes.
That's how they settled it back then. It wasn't as complicated as it is now.
And so Pittsburgh wins the coin flip.
Pittsburgh wins the coin
Your dad
flip.
wanted to play for Cleveland.
Wanted to play for Cleveland.
Okay.
He's going to Pittsburgh. Well, in the offseason, they make a trade for a guy named Bobby Layne out of Detroit.
Detroit Lions.
And Hall of Famer, championship winner. So my dad is no longer going to be the starting quarterback. He sits behind Bobby for 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And Bobby Layne takes him under his wing. And Bobby Layne was a fun guy.
He was. Now remember, I'm in Pittsburgh at this time.
Oh, okay.
When they get Bobby Layne, and they were absolutely atrocious until Bobby became their quarterback. Okay, when they brought him in, and at that point, after your dad only played I think he only played 2 or 3 games in 5 years. One of those deals after they brought. And Earl Morrall was there the first year, and then Bobby Layne came in right after that. And your dad is riding the bench at that point. But Bobby Layne Detroit got rid of him. And Bobby Layne was the guy who turned around and said, I'll guarantee you, they're getting rid of me. I'm the greatest quarterback they've ever had. They'll never have a championship game in the next 50 years. And they haven't had a chance. They call it the Bobby Layne curse for the trade from Detroit to Pittsburgh. Absolutely. And Bobby had fun, didn't he? He was sort of a fun guy, wasn't he?
He took my dad under his wing, and they used to, they've got some stories. I don't know how many I can tell.
Well, you can tell whatever you want.
You know, my dad brings up a story one time where they were playing some away game, and they're out the night before. You know, Bobby Layne would drink all night, the night before the game, with the people that were in the stands. In the stands, they would boo him because they were drunk. You know, he'd still be hungover. And so my dad and him and somebody else are riding, going to a bar or something. And Bobby crashes a car into like 4 parked cars. Well, what do? They got out and went in the bar and left it.
Yeah, sure. He just left it there,
abandoned
right?
it.
Yeah, I remember some old Steelers, and they'll tell you the stories when you're hanging around them. They'll tell you the stories of guys who played with Bobby. They'd say he'd walk in the huddle. All right, he'd walk in the huddle the first play, bend over and start calling a play. All the guys in the huddle go, "Oh my God, Bobby, were you out all night or what is the deal?
Take a breath mint.
Have you sobered up yet or what?" So. In those days, it was just a little bit different than it is.
Totally.
Where they're 365 days a year football and working out, and they have their nutritionist, and they have the guy who does his stretches, and they have this workout guy. Those guys, they didn't care anything about that, did they?
No, they didn't have it. They didn't have any of that stuff. I mean, they went to training camp to get back into shape because in the off season they would eat and drink and do whatever. You know,
yeah,
so.
They had 6 preseason games in those days too.
Yeah.
So they were only playing 12 games. And then they had to, they went to 14 and 16. Now they play 17. But they're only playing 12 games. They had 6 exhibition games. Can you imagine sitting through 6 exhibition games? Just no.
It's time you need to look at the guy.
Yeah, I know. And I know you were born in Pittsburgh, and I know when your dad got drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, he didn't play, okay, and he was actually drafted ahead of Jimmy Brown. Who ended up?
That's who the Browns got for second pick.
That's it. They got for the coin flip. They ended up getting Jimmy Brown, and not a bad deal. But they both worked out eventually for their teams.
They both played together later.
Yeah, right. Len didn't. Len didn't play for. He played in. He got drafted by Pittsburgh. He ended up playing for Cleveland there for a while, and they played together, right?
Oh yeah. But what happened was, Paul Brown wanted my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So, my dad sits the bench for, I think it was 2 years. And then Paul Brown makes a deal. And so my dad's going to get to go to Cleveland, where he always wanted to go and play. And so he's getting ready to go to training camp. And Bobby Layne decides to give him a send-off. And we lived in a place called Allison Park.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, these hills are like mountains.
Yeah. If anybody's been to Pittsburgh, they know.
You don't want to drive them definitely in the winter. So anyway, my dad is, I guess, coming home or whatever and misses the turn, wrecks the car, breaks his thumb and rib, and shows up to camp. And Paul Brown didn't put up with stuff like that. Took the ball out of my dad's hand, gave it to a guy named Milt Plum because you're my guy now. Wow. And so he sits the bench for another 3 years. And his skills were eroded. He hadn't played and all this. And Hank Stram was coming to town for a meeting or something, or to meet with somebody, and had lunch with my dad. Said, how's it going? My dad expressed that he wasn't really happy. He says, well, if you could ever, get released, I'd love to have you down in Dallas. So my dad thought about it and goes, I'm not doing anything. Nothing's going right here.
Right. So
Paul Brown decides to release him, and he did it when all the NFL coaches were like on break. And back then they didn't have phones or fax machines or anything like that, so nobody knew about it. But Hank swooped him up, and the rest was history.
Wow, that's incredible.
The first year, Hank worked with my dad because he was horrible. And Lamar ends up trading their starting quarterback to the Raiders because the Raiders
were Cotton Davidson.
Yeah, Cotton Davidson.
Yeah.
It was the starting quarterback. He trades him because the Raiders needed help. Can you imagine that? The Chiefs helping the Raiders?
Yeah, well, not in this day and age, or even then for that matter, except they were a little closer then.
Yeah,
all those owners
in
the AFC or the AFL, because they're trying to make it the foolish club. Lamar Hunt called it the foolish club. All these guys that decided to go together and try to go up against the NFL at that time. But
thank God they did.
Perfect timing, too, because the NFL, like you said, wasn't that popular at that time either. But so Hank
2 yards in a cloud of dust.
I know, it's terrible. And so Hank remembered your dad from Purdue.
Yeah.
And knew in there somewhere was that Len Dawson.
Yep.
And he took enough of a chance with him to take him to Dallas, where he was the head coach. And he put his career on the line, inserting your dad as the starting quarterback. and working with him at that time. He took an incredible chance with your father.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Believed in him.
Yeah, really, and knew that he had that somewhere in him. And I guess when they were still in Dallas, you and your mom, Jackie, were still in Pittsburgh at that time. Your dad, you never moved, did you?
We didn't know if we were going to make it or not. We didn't know if the league was going to make it. I mean,
That's right. So what do you remember about that? You were just,
I was young, but we came to Kansas City. We moved and we rented a house on 79th and Outlook.
Okay.
Which is Candy Cane Lane.
That's it. That's exactly right.
And it was cool. I mean, we loved it. And then I guess after we were there for the first year, we ended up buying a house out in Redbridge. We lived across the street from the guy that built it, who had 6 kids. The guy behind us had 8 kids. Got 9. It was a great neighborhood, man. We had pickup games and just really, back then in the '60s. I mean, it's different. I mean, kids just would go out, and I'd just go out, spend the whole day out. Nobody worried about stealing the kid or getting hurt or anything.
Pictures on milk cartons ruined it for everybody.
It did.
Okay, it was you go out and be home before the street lights come on.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah,
they didn't care if you were home for dinner.
Well, they had the neighbors had a bell, and then one neighbor would whistle, and the kids would hear it, and they come around, and it was time to eat.
Yeah, well, you're all starving anyway by that time. Yeah, and you still live in Redbridge. Which is amazing. You still live out there.
Can't get away.
Yeah, you can't get away. So Dallas moves to Kansas City. They become the Kansas City Chiefs, named after Roe Bartle. Of course, everybody thinks it's the Native American thing, which the motif ended up, and the branding became that. With the horse and riding
Arrowhead
in
Stadium.
The whole deal, Arrowhead Stadium and the whole deal. But it was named after Roe Bartle, who was instrumental in getting the Chiefs from Dallas to Kansas City. And, they just went off from there. Well, what's your earliest memory? Is the earliest memory camp for you as far as your dad and moving to Kansas City was concerned?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go to camp when I was that young.
Right.
But probably when I got to be about at 66 or 65, I think is when I started going. And, I wasn't the only one. A lot of the kids went. I mean, it was AFL was about family. The NFL now is about money. Totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was nice. I mean, we knew everybody. We knew all their family and their wives and, coaches and the hunts. Everybody was all friendly.
Yeah.
And everybody liked each other. I mean, after the games, the whole team would go and have an after party. And they don't do that now.
No.
I mean,
it's so corporate now.
Oh, there's so much that can happen that can go wrong, and there's too much money involved, and people get sued or who knows. I mean,
you worry about people from the outside. You have Mahomes and Kelsey getting robbed. When it's game day somewhere, you just go. The world has changed so much since those days. Like you said, we used to play outside, and there were no video games. Nobody was sitting in mom's basement playing Fortnite or whatever.
Yeah, you had 3 channels on the TV, and it was black and white.
Yes, absolutely, it was.
Nobody was sitting in there watching TV.
Yeah. Well, what's your first memory of Dad playing the game?
It was weird because when I was, he wore a helmet, and I is that really my dad? Is that really? But once I got to start going to camp, and then once I got, after going to camp, I got to go on the, that opened up the door. I had carte blanche. Then I could go on the sidelines.
Yeah, sure.
Go in the locker room after the game. I mean, I lived a childhood that every boy dreams of.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing.
And then meeting all
the
of
people
those
that I met.
players, like you
And
said,
the other
it was
players.
family.
And the other,
That's what I'm talking
everybody.
about. Guys from the other teams as well. Yeah.
I remember one time, this is after the Jets won the Super Bowl in '68. They came, and Joe Willie had a cast on. He had some kind of, I guess, work done in the offseason. And they played a preseason game, and, Joe Willie comes in, hit some guy that was writing a book on him or whatever after the Super Bowl. And he's on the sidelines. And I used to play catch with Stu on the sidelines. And God, Stu would throw it 50 yards in the air at 14. I'd catch it, run it back 20, and kick it.
To take the rest back yourself.
But I got a picture of me that some photographer took. I getting Joe Namath's autograph for a buddy of mine on the sideline. I got it in my house.
Gosh, we still have that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Joe is, of course, from Western Pennsylvania as well.
Yep.
From
he
Beaver
loved
Falls.
my dad.
Oh yeah.
He really idolized him.
Yeah. which a lot of people did in those days. And then Joe ends up winning the Super Bowl with the Jets against Baltimore. Then your dad the next year against the Vikings, they go in and beat the Vikings. So that was
the last
incredible.
AFL NFL game ever.
That was it. That was absolutely it.
Who's the champs?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember anything from Super Bowl I when they played when they played the Packers and they went down there? Old Vince Lombardi, his mean, nasty self that he was, but he was a hell of a football coach. That was for sure.
That he was. I got to. We had my Aunt Betty lived out there, and she had 3 boys, and so I was more excited about going to Disneyland than the game. I mean, the game we didn't know what it was. I mean, it's just a game, you know.
Yeah.
And so, I got photos of me in the stands once again by some photographer that is pretty cool. But I go to, the game's over. And so I go to, I had just started going down to the locker room. So I go down to get in the locker room. Well, nobody knows me. And so I can't get in. And so I go, okay. So I go back.
You didn't drop you don't know who I am?
No,
Are you sure?
I
Look at
never,
me. I look just like my dad. He's number 16 playing quarterback.
You know what? I never did that. I always, when I would beat people, I wouldn't tell them my last name. Because then you got to go into the 15-minute deal about, no, you're not, you're baloney, all that stuff, So, anyway, I ended up getting lost at Super Bowl I for 45 minutes because I came back and then I'm lost at L.A. Coliseum. So that's my memory from that.
Yeah, okay, you were lost at the end. There are some other memories from the other Super Bowls, of course. I think there's a famous photo of you and your dad after Super Bowl IV, and he is on the phone. And you're standing right beside him. Who's he on the phone with?
Oh, that was President Nixon.
Yeah, exactly right.
But the photos be on top of the training tables with him because people don't remember back then, but it was a big gambling conspiracy about my dad.
Yeah.
2 weeks before the Super Bowl, we had to be taken out of school in fear that somebody might do something to us.
Yeah, kidnap you for ransom.
Or whatever. I don't know. I mean, but we ended up getting to go to the Super Bowl early to get away from it all. And my dad was like in seclusion because, I mean, everybody was wanting to talk to him and this and that. They had him held up. And I think Pittsburgh Joe was in there, getting him stuff or, keeping people away. And, his roommate back then on the road was Johnny Robinson. Mm-hmm. And Johnny had broken ribs and, ended up playing the game. And I think they shot him up with Novocaine. His brother was a dentist. Sure. They tried anything.
Take an aspirin, see me in the morning, get out there and start playing.
It's amazing. But yeah, so anyway, it was a lot of pressure. I mean, he came out with a book called Pressure Quarterback. It tells the whole story. But anyway, the Nixon told him on the phone, he goes, that thing, don't worry about that. And we never heard anything about it. I mean, that thing was on national news on Huntley Brinkley before the Super Bowl. How can they do that and not check the references or anything? I mean. In
those days, they were looking for headlines.
Yeah.
They're just looking for, now they call them clicks. Now it's different. You need somebody on your station, instead of somebody getting up in those days before remote control and flipping it manually to the other station, right? Did he ever talk about it after? I know he talked about Pressure Quarterback and that, but did he ever talk to you and Lisa about it, to the family about what happened?
Not really. I mean, our mother was the backbone of the family. So
yeah.
But we got all our information from her because, he had so much going on. And was always having to be places. Back then, football didn't pay anything.
Right.
I mean, so they all had 2 jobs, and his job, ended up being in broadcasting, which, at first he was like selling insurance or something. But after 66, he ends up going on Channel 9.
Yes.
And those are another great story. I used to, because, he's always working or doing engagements or doing this or doing that. So my mom, on Fridays, my dad would have to take me down to Channel 9 with him, and so to spend time with me. So I'd go down for the 6:00 report, and then we would drive back, or we'd go to eat at Italian Gardens or breakfast or something, and I'd stay down there, and then we'd come home after the 10:00 show, and I would Don Fortune and all Larry Moore and all those guys back then. They had to put up with me.
Yeah, right. Somebody, because Len would come back just before the news came on.
Oh, he didn't do any work. He just read. I mean, those guys did all the work.
I told
Don
Len,
Sanders and Fortune and all those guys.
I can't tell you how many times I told Len, I said, you have the job I want. He said, well, Francis, we're both in the same business. I said, no, Len, we really aren't in the same business.
It was amazing. All he would do was just get up and read.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But he was good at it. I mean,
He was great at it.
he did it for so long. I mean, he worked Channel 9 over 50 years.
Yeah. And he was Lenny the Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing ever flushed him. Look at the gambling situation.
Yeah.
You know? That's why they end up in the field. Did you remember who first dubbed him Lenny the Cool? I can't get a definitive somebody. I think maybe Hank did it or one of the other
I would think it was
teammates.
probably.
Or whatever.
I think it was probably like a sports writer or somebody.
So I thought it'd be like somebody like Grigsby or somebody of that nature.
I don't know who started it. To be honest
Yeah.
with you.
I've looked everywhere and can't find, but
That's a heck of a nickname.
that is a great nickname. It fit him perfectly because he really got the nickname from the photo that he ended up hating. He hated the photo, which is such an iconic photo of him.
I tried to tell him that. What happened was, he was named Lenny the Cool before that, but they had to hold that back. That's from Super Bowl I, all those photos.
Yes.
And they had to, since they didn't win, if they'd have won, the guy could have published them, but they didn't, so he had to wait 50 years. And so that comes out, and I go, I think it's the greatest thing ever. I mean, everybody does.
Right.
And so I go to NFL Films, ends up contacting me because they called, and I think my stepmother hung up on them. And they called the Chiefs. They didn't know what to do. They said, call the son. So I have lunch with my dad, and they sent me what they were going to do. Very tasteful. And it wasn't all about him and that photo, but because they were showing stuff like, Paul Horney's doing a cigarette commercial. And
Yeah, sure.
It was
different.
It was different back then.
Yeah, sure it was.
And so I go, Dad, I go, do you realize that this photo is what people are going to remember? They're not going to know your stats or if you won Super Bowl IV or any of that stuff. They're going to remember this. Yeah. No, they're not. He goes, I don't like that. I go, why don't you like it? He goes, it hurts my image. I go, Dad, you're 82 years old. What the hell do you worry about? I go, what do you worry about?
Lenny the Cool.
Yeah, it hurt my image. And so I had him talked into to let them do it, and it would have really been a cool thing. And we go, and I go back home, and phone rings. As soon as I walk in the door, I'm not doing it. I go, say no more. It wasn't his decision.
Yeah.
It wasn't his decision why he did it or not.
It was Lenny sitting in the locker room on a folding chair, of all things, no plush, leather seat in front of your locker and all that stuff. He's sitting on a folding chair. He's bent over. Concrete floor, smoking a cigarette. And he has a bottle of Fresca sitting at the bottom of his seat. It is one of the great. The only other photo from NFL history that I know that even comes close is Y.A. Tittle kneeling in the end zone, bleeding from his head after getting hit again. Y.A. Tittle played for the New York Giants, playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was hit in the end zone by Baker. I think his last name was Baker, his defensive end. He's kneeling in the end zone. His helmet's off, and he is bleeding. And that's
iconic.
It's an iconic photo as well. And he got out of that game, and he said, I'm done. I'm retired. I'm done. That's the last game I'm playing. And that's the only other photo. And I know there are thousands of great photos of action. I'm sure Saquon Barkley's leaping up backwards over a defensive back this year from Philadelphia is going to be one of those photos. But those two photos epitomized what
old
the
football.
NFL and old-time football was
old
back
football.
in those days.
I got one that is from Super Bowl I with him on one knee, just him, and it's kind of similar to the Y.A. Tittle one.
Yeah.
It's him. It's a great. I love it, even though they lost. I mean, it's just a great photo.
And people don't realize how the score looked at the end. It looks like, Packers just wiped out. How close that game was at halftime.
Well, it was 14-10, and they were moving the ball the very first series going down, and he gets hit, or his arm got hit, and he throws a duck up there. That changed it. It was intercepted. Guy ran it back to, I think, the 5-yard line.
Yeah, right, 5-yard line. And that was the day Boyd Dollar was.
That guy. Can you believe that?
That
guy wasn't supposed to play. He was drunk the night before.
That was another classic.
No, Boyd Dollar is when they got hurt.
No, Boyd Dollar got hurt.
Yeah.
And then it was, oh gosh, my brain's escaping me. But whoever ended up coming back in and played tight end ended up being, I think it was the MVP.
Yeah.
Well,
no, it's Bart Starr, but he should have been.
Yeah, he should have been the MVP. Caught all those touchdown passes and he was terrific that day. Yeah, I'm gonna have to remember who that guy was. But that was classic as well. But that game was close at halftime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So it was a fun deal. Yeah. And after that next Super Bowl, it was going to be a long drought for the Kansas City Chiefs. But like you said, your dad now, he had to have another job. Several of the times, on Sundays after games, okay, your dad is now working at Channel 9 as well, and he's the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. After the games, he's in the locker room with his uniform is still on.
People.
He's got a microphone saying he's interviewing the players from his own team. Is that classic? Or
it's classic. I mean, he used to have to first of all, tell him what he was going to ask him. And some of the guys, he would tell them what to say.
Well, some of those guys, you think about it. Yeah, that's probably about right. Yeah,
they loved it. Those players loved it. To get interviewed and stuff like that. It was great.
Yeah, that was before they fined the offensive lineman for being if you take an interview, we're going to fine you. Where they had the players' fines that throw them in a bucket for a big party at the end of the year. If you talk, we see you on television, we're going to fine you $500. In those days. But again, the amazing thing is all those guys had something else. Bobby Bell had the barbecue.
Before that, he was working for the plant, the Ford plant.
Yeah, he's working at Ford plant. Yeah. Some of the other guys got into, I think Buck Buchanan was working in construction, ended up finding All-American construction after it was over. Yeah, All-Pro construction after it was over. So it was.
Lothamer, too. Lothamer got into.
Yeah, Ed Lothamer. He ended up concrete.
Yeah.
I think he ended up getting in concrete business, right? Yeah, and all those guys had stuff that they were doing. So
had to, yeah.
Yeah. Did your dad want to branch out? And he remained with that job at Channel 9 through a lot of that HBO stuff, through a lot of doing the analysis on NBC and all those other things that he did. So it was incredible.
Well, when he was doing NBC, he didn't do a lot because that took and HBO. He would have to go to New York, and then he didn't have a lot of time to do the Channel 9 stuff. But he still stayed with them and did stuff.
Yeah, right.
But it wasn't like every night like it used to be.
Yeah.
But it was on radio too back then.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He had like 4 shows on a day on KMBR and KMVZ.
Yeah, all the radio stations in Kansas City.
The good thing was he ended up going to Q104 at the end.
Oh gosh.
And they had a softball team. And I got to play softball with my dad.
Oh, that is awesome.
He was unbelievable, man. They put him out in center field, and he would throw a strike to home plate from center field like
he still had that arm.
Oh my God, this great athlete. That guy. He was so competitive. We would every night after dinner, the family would go down and we had a ping pong table, and we played doubles, and it would be me, my mom against my dad and sister, and then I'd want to play my dad for the championship, and he never would let me win 2 out of 3
until you could. Right?
I never beat him.
Oh my God!
And then I go, Dad, I got a ping pong table in my basement. Do you want to go down there? You think I'm going to go down there and play you without practicing? So yeah, he didn't want to lose. But racquetball, I mean, I never beat him in racquetball. I mean, only sport I beat him in was golf.
Oh, really? And he played golf a lot.
Yeah, but he didn't play as much as I did.
I know he and Jack Harry used to play a lot. When, I first got here. I was so envious of Jack at that time. He was over at Channel 5. And Fortune eventually went to Channel 5, but your dad was at Channel 9. And excuse me. They used to go out and play golf with their barber.
Yeah, Johnny the Barber and the Brillo Boys, all those guys.
All those guys used to play together. So your dad was a very, very competitive guy. Oh, yeah. He was competitive too on the air. He wanted to make sure Channel 9 won. Like my mother said, good luck competing against Len Dawson.
Well, they did. I mean, when they brought
when they had Larry Moore, they were a monster.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning they had Larry, and then Larry left, and my dad left, and then they got them both back.
They both came back. And Larry came back from San Francisco, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and your dad went where?
Well, he was doing the
NBC
the other stuff,
and
the HBO stuff at the time, and didn't have the time to do it.
Yeah.
So, good memories.
Yeah, they are really terrific memories. Do you talk about your mom a little bit? Okay, Jackie. They were high school sweethearts. Back in the day, and we lost her way too young. You certainly did. What are your thoughts about your mom and your some memories about her?
Well, they got married my dad's freshman year at Purdue. So my mom was like 17 and had my sister at 17 or 18, maybe 17 or 18. And I mean, they're living in these abandoned Army barracks up in Purdue that had no insulation. My grandfather on my mother's side goes up there and he goes to use the restroom, and the water in the toilet's frozen. So So they lived it rough. I mean, my sister got all kinds of sicknesses and stuff too from
Oh, really?
having the So anyway, so I guess I was lucky coming in Pittsburgh.
At least you had a real house.
Yeah,
Indoor plumbing and a real house. Yeah, right.
The crazy thing was, back then, I was born in August, so my dad didn't bring me home from the hospital. And when his best friend Pittsburgh Joe did, so it was always like that.
Yeah, right.
It was always like that. So
yeah, that's the way we talk about too. The way I've been here since 1981 and had several opportunities to leave during my career here. Either somebody's going to throw me out, or there were other places in the country that, in fact, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia both. But I just never left. You know what I mean? And it was just like one of those things. The people in Pittsburgh, everybody asked me why. Why'd you stay? And I said, well, there's just something about Kansas City, but the fact that I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, and I said all the way through high school, and I just said, there's the people here remind me of those people in Pittsburgh. And you talked about Pittsburgh, Joe, his great friend. He brings you home from the hospital because your dad isn't here. You're born in August. He's down in Dallas playing for the Texans. I mean, it's just.
Well, he was with the Steelers.
Steelers at that time, yeah. Okay.
Well, I didn't mean to detract off my mom, but anyway, she was like the backbone of the family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my dad didn't want to make decisions about anything but football or whatever he was doing. So my mom ran everything. I mean, my dad would come home, all right, Leonard, we're going here, we're doing this, whatever. Okay. And, he was fine with it. So I got really close with my mom because we spent a lot of time together.
Yeah, sure.
And we used to bowl together, and, she'd want to do stuff. And so I would, pretend like I didn't want to go bowling, which I really did.
Yeah.
And,
you don't want to tell your friends.
Yeah. Well,
I have to go bowling with my mom.
She would go, come on, Layne. No, I don't want to go. I'll bet you. Okay. Then one day I had her down with ping pong and everything. I don't know, $160, which is a lot of money back when you were 7 or 8 or 10 years old or whatever it was. And I was kind of pressuring her for money, and my dad overheard it. What are you talking about? I go, well, Mom owes me money from betting. Betting? It's all my money. You're not getting any. Oh, gosh. Shut that down. What do you mean betting?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, I hear she was a wonderful lady.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, she did a lot. I mean, she helped all the younger, because my dad and mother were older than all the other players because he sat the bench for 5 years before he came. But all the young wives and stuff, my mom took under her wing and helped them. I remember Bonnie Wilson had just turned 17 and came up and was married to Gerald Wilson. And, my mom was great with that. She also did a lot of charity work, with people. Pattern, kids with, issues. Just a lot of different stuff. She was involved in a lot of things.
Yeah.
But, they all bowled back then. The Chiefs had a league, I think, at one time. And it was fun. I mean, we'd all go bowling together, or we'd all go we'd play ping pong or whatever. I mean, that's just what we did.
This is a tough question because your mom died young.
Yeah.
She died back in 1978. Aneurysm, I believe, was the
stroke.
Stroke. Okay, stroke. I knew it was something to do with the heart and the brain.
What happened was my senior year, she had a stroke, and they said it was from smoking cigarettes and taking birth control pills.
Uh-huh.
The combination. They didn't know at the time that it was bad, but the combination, I guess, did that. Well, when she had her first stroke, it was devastating because she had no short-term memory, but she had long-term. And she lost all her skills on her right side.
Right.
But she was right-handed. And so she had to learn everything with her left. And my dad was great. I mean, he just shut everything down and worked with her every day.
Yeah.
And, she battled. And I graduated high school. I was kind of teenager.
I know exactly what you mean.
Because back then, I turned 16 in 74. And you could pick up a Hemi Cuda or anything back then for under $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad back then used to endorse Chrysler and Dodge and all. So he'd come home with a Charger one week, and next week it'd be a Super Bee or something. He didn't care. A car is transportation to him.
Yeah.
But to a kid in high school,
chunk of metal.
Yeah, a kid in high school, it's everything. And when he got the MVP in after Super Bowl IV is the first year the Dodge Challenger came out.
Oh, wow.
And he got this gorgeous red Dodge Challenger for the MVP car. Well, I was 11. My sister was turning 16. She gets it. Oh, I wanted that car so bad. Well, I'm thinking I'm going to get it when I turn 16. And she ends up trading it in for and this thing had like a beefed up engine and all this stuff on it. It was a gorgeous car. She trades it for a purple Challenger with a 318 in it. And it just broke my heart.
She kept it challenge. She kept it Dodge. Okay, that's one thing you can say for her.
You know what that car would be worth now?
Oh, gosh.
I tried to. We don't have any VIN numbers or anything. I tried to find it, but it's the only one ever. It's the only MVP Super Bowl car Challenger
Absolutely,
ever.
yeah.
It's the first year they came out. I think it'd be worth Meekum or something, worth a fortune.
I bet it would be.
But anyway, so I was always kind of, I like those cars. So I go to my dad. I go, what about me? He goes, I'll help you get a car. I go, okay. So what do? I go up to Trans Am was big back in 70s.
Oh, yeah, sure, Pontiac.
And so I go up and I ordered me a brand new Trans Am with everything.
You ordered it?
I ordered it.
Oh, gosh.
And so I don't tell anybody. So I go back home and phone rings a few months later. It's the car dealership. Mr. Dawson, we got your son's car here. What car is that? He goes, that's nicer than the car I'm driving. He's not getting that. I go, what's the deal? He goes, I was gonna help you because I was gonna get you a Volkswagen. I go, Volkswagen? Lisa gets a Super Bowl car, I get a Volkswagen?
or I'll get you a Honda Civic. How's that?
They didn't have nothing back then. But anyway, so I go, well, would you just maybe co-sign on a car? Because I started working at the grocery store when I was 15, sacking groceries because I played baseball for the team for Payless or whatever was the name of the baseball team. So he goes, okay. So I get my own hot rods.
Gosh.
And, it didn't go over well because I had this one, oh, my goodness, it was so fast. The police would try to stop me, and I didn't want the ticket, so I wouldn't stop. And they couldn't catch me. So I guess they knew who I was. Yeah. And so they go
after a while. I'm sure they saw it. Hey, hold
there he is again.
You want to call this off? That's Dawson's kid.
So I guess what they did was they went to the house and told my dad that I was either going to kill myself or kill somebody.
Yeah, right.
And so I come home, and my dad didn't know how to drive a stick shift. This had a pistol grip shifter and all this. And so I come home, my dad goes, let me see the keys to your car. I go, oh, cool, my dad wants to drive my car. So I give him the keys. He goes, sold. What do you mean sold? He goes, the police were here, and they told me this, and this. I go, well, whatever. And so I go, I paid $1,500 for the car. I go, I was going to sell it for $2,500. He goes, done. So anyway, the car sat there in the garage, right? And this is when my mom had her stroke and stuff. So I had an extra set of keys. And so,
of course you did.
Yeah. So he'd go out of town. I take that thing out, and I mean, it was like being at a drag strip because I didn't have it for, so I'm just ripping it up, And I'm going to a prom at St. Teresa's with this girl, and I wanted to show off my car, so I go pick her up in it, and I was doing burnouts like an idiot.
Sure.
And I dropped the drive shaft, and my dad's coming home the next day. So I get it towed down, and I put all the money I had, and I get it fixed and put it back, and I go, all right, I'm not taking it out anymore. Well, like 3 days later, there's a knock on the door, and I wasn't advertising the car or anything, but at one time I was kind of getting tired of it because I was going through clutches and tires and all
sure.
that. I was driving it like a race car. And I put a for sale sign in it, and a guy saw it, and I took it out. Well, this guy comes to the door, he knocks on the door, he goes, hey, you the one with that yellow TA Challenger? And I go, nope, sold it. Close the door, and my dad catches the door. He sold it to me. Pulls it out. The guy goes, I'll give you $1,500 for it. He goes, get it out of here.
Oh,
took $1,000 loss just to get rid of it.
Man, can you imagine $1,500 for a car? You can't get a car for $1,500. There's no.
Those cars sell for $150,000 to $200,000.
Yeah, when they redo them, you see them come up on all those shows they have on Motor Trend.
I'll show you some pictures. I got on my phone later.
Yeah,
all this stuff.
gosh, yeah, we'll have to take that. We'll put them up on here as well.
But anyway, so that was right before I graduated, and so I'm not in a good mood. My dad took my car away, and
sure.
This, that, or whatever. And so he goes, "What are your plans, young Leonard?"
Young Leonard. I don't feel so bad about Mike Francis anymore.
Oh, I had a lot of names. But anyway, what are your plans? I go, well, I don't think I want to go to college. Okay. I don't feel much like working either. Graduation
Gosh.
house. I got $500 in luggage. Get the hell out of here. So where do I go? Back to Pittsburgh to live with Pittsburgh Joe because my dad had signed the paperwork to take on Stroh's in Columbia,
Beer,
Missouri.
that's beer.
Columbia,
For some people
Missouri.
who don't know.
Yeah, Stroh's is a beer. And so, and we were going to try to get Coors was coming from west to east.
Yeah.
Stroh's was coming from east to west. And so I went up to learn the beer business, and I was up there for like a year or so. I should have stayed there. I lived at top of Mount Washington. You know where that was?
Oh, yeah, sure. Up there by the Lamont.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I lived in
yeah.
Lamont.
We're right above the inclines.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so overlooking the Three Rivers. And all
Yes, beautiful.
that. And I worked. I got into working at the beer distributorship, and I was a Teamster at 17. You're not supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah, right.
And,
Well, Pittsburgh Joe took care of it.
He took care of everything.
I remember Pittsburgh pretty well. Unions were pretty strong.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But anyway, so I go up there and then I come back home, and once again I reunite with my gang. So
Sure, from high school.
I was like, we had a football-shaped swimming pool in our backyard. A lot of people know that, but we used to jump off the roof into the pool, and I was told not to do that. Well, anyway, I'd been out drinking. I had two cars back then. I had a Cuda at that time with a 426 in it that brought back from Pittsburgh. And I had this other car because I was selling ladies' clothing. It had a big trunk or whatever. So we're driving that car, and I hit a curb not too far from my house. We'd been drinking.
Drinking, sure.
And flat two tires. So I pulled in the garage, and we're jumping off the roof of the pool, keep the party going. And I remember jumping off, and my mom walked out. I jumped over her head, and I knew. I held my breath for as long as I could because once I got out of there, I was in a lot of trouble. When my dad goes, "What the hell's going on here?" I go, "Nothing. We're just swimming and
Jumping off the roof into the pool? Yeah, no big deal.
He goes, "What happened to your car?" I forgot I'd wrecked it. I forgot I flattened the tire. I go, "Nothing. Why? Get out." He takes my friends home, and so I'm like, "Okay." So here I am, being disruptive. My mom would, and I really feel bad about it because I should have been a good son and been helping. Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, this a buddy of mine calls me up, and he was going to school down in Houston and wanted to know if I could drive him and his motorcycle, tow his motorcycle. Sure. I got to get out of here.
Yeah, why not?
I got to get out of here.
Yeah, just threw me out of the house.
Yeah. Well, he hadn't thrown me out yet. So anyway, so I take off with him, and I was working for a buddy of mine that owned Saran truck rental and Moley's. They own Moley Chevrolet and all that stuff. And anyway, so I'd drive down there. Well, this car was had such a fast engine in it and stuff. I did some of the work on it. I put shake. I didn't put you're supposed to put a heat thing down there, or, to protect the heat from coming up. This car was so hot. We're driving that. It didn't have air conditioning because none of them did. And I had a temp gauge. It was 140 degrees in that car, man. We had a tennis shoes to put on the and nothing else. This pair of shorts and ice. And so on the way back, the car overheats, and I missed work. There's no way to call anybody back then. And so I come back in when the guy goes, "Well, I thought you quit." He goes, here's your. So I turned around and drove right back down to Houston.
Oh, wow.
Didn't tell anybody. I was down there for probably 3 months. Now, I'm working. I went and got a job at the, whatever. And
Yeah, sure.
I went to work for Board and Milk, checking milk or whatever. And I was trying to do all this overtime so I could
Make some money.
get rid of that car, get it out of there. And so it was November, and this is when my dad was still working for NBC, and I call home because I had money to pay.
Right.
My dad goes, "Where the hell are you? Your mother's worried sick." I go, "I'm in Houston." He goes, "What?" He goes, "Well, I got some money. I'm gonna send you to take care of that car." That car's been gone. I got rid of that car 3 months ago.
Yeah.
He goes, "Don't worry about that car." He goes, "I'm coming down to do the." It was back then. It's a great game. Houston Oilers against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, they're great games.
1978.
Chuck Noll, yeah.
Oh God, Franco against Earl.
Earl Campbell, yeah.
And so I got to sit in the booth. The only time I ever did for NBC, and I got to see what he does up there, and it's not easy.
That's not easy.
They've got all this stuff they got to cover and this and that, and then right before they go on the air, they go NFL ran long, cut 2 minutes, and they got to like boom, do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was really cool. It was a great game. Steelers ended up winning, and we did like Christmas Day after my sister came. And I'm so glad I did that because like 3 days later she died.
Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah.
She had another stroke in the shower, and my dad found her.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, and she was such a great lady, too. That had to be an extremely difficult time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, for everybody in the family, Len included, you know. And you and your sister, Lisa, it's just, that had to be a devastating time for you guys, yeah.
I ended up moving back home, and, you know, I ended up moving to Florida and played flag football, lived with a couple lifeguards on the beach.
Yeah, right.
Had fun. I got the hell out of Kansas City for a while. And forgot.
And then what brought you back?
I got tired of it. I came back, and that's what I went into the event business with my buddies, the Brancatos.
Yeah.
They had a restaurant, too, that I was a manager of, and got in the food business. And then from there, I, opened a food brokerage company and did a bunch of stuff in food.
Yeah, right. So what is it about, and what was it for your dad as well? What is it about, we call it, there's just something about Kansas City. What is it about Kansas City?
I think it's the people.
What was it for your dad?
I think it's the people here. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's they're so welcoming, and the lifestyle is not fast. It's not slow either.
Right.
It's like perfect right in the middle. I mean, you got anything you want here in Kansas City, but it's great that nobody knows about it. Because it's not traffic's not crazy. We've got the arts if you're into that. We got sports teams if you're into that. Whatever you want, we have here. The plaza, even the shopping, it's here.
Yeah, it really is, and it's really taken on a life of its own with the World Series championship and then the Super Bowl championships and the draft, and we had the All-Star game, and you have the draft, and
the Cup.
Now World Cup's coming, so it is one of those places that people all of a sudden go, oh, Kansas City.
Well, the food's so good too.
Yes.
Oh my God,
absolutely.
the restaurants are great.
Yeah, you bet. Not just the barbecue either. Yeah. Hey, listen, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the memories. And I know you know this, but I'll let you know again. I loved your dad. Love you. We've been friends for a long period of time, so it's just this has been a great day for me as well. And all the best to you.
Thank you.
Moving forward.
Thank you.
Buddy. Yeah, good seeing you.
And thank you for remembering my dad.
Yeah, you bet. Oh, you bet. Thank you for bringing up all those great memories. Everybody knows the stats. What they don't know is all the stuff from behind the scenes. He's such a great guy, wonderful guy. And both Len Jr. and Len Sr., that's the reason there's just something about Kansas City.
Thank you.
There's Just Something About Kansas City is a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization with the mission of documenting the stories that have built our city to inspire and educate generations to come. Our work is made possible by the generous support of local partners such as the Cockrell Family Foundation, the Bergman family, and the Sherman Family Foundation. For more information about how you can help us share these stories, visit our website at somethingaboutKC.org. Thank you.